Ladies and gentlemen, gavel.
Just bang it.
Have a bit of order in here. Welcome back. It's been a good break for me. What the rest of it was like. Yes, a bloody good unwinding session. We're into a wonderful year in 2020. There's so many things going on for us in Oundle Town Council. And the agenda for this evening's neighbourhood plan meeting is possibly the most exciting of them all. So thank you for your attendance. Just to go through the agenda in a normal way then. Apologies for absence.
I've had apologies from Councillor Glenn.
Right. Okay, that's all. And you said with a possible delay from
Yeah,
the offices.
Neville and Sue are aiming to get here, but they
Yeah.
did say they might be late.
All right. So I'm happy to accept those. Come on.
Yeah, I did see David Fuller this afternoon, and he said he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight. So
Oh, right, okay.
Surprised he hasn't said this going to officially, but anyway, I shall send them on his behalf.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor.
Okay, we're happy to accept those. Right. Silence does mean yes. Right, declarations of interest. I'll start myself. I'm saying I'm a resident of St Christopher's Drive.
Well, actually, I suppose I need to say it. I'll declare that I was a member of the Blackthorn Neighbourhood Plan Working Party, and I am a councillor on Blackthorn as well as Oundle.
Right, okay. Moving on then. Public participation from interested parties or members of the public. You two chaps have come to listen, have you, at the moment? Yeah. Right, okay. Fine. Right, so, sorry, the presentation from Oundle Business Association, is that happening or not? Or have I got the wrong minutes here?
So, sorry, that shouldn't be on there, I don't know.
How dare I cringe on
Yeah,
the neighbourhood
that
plan
shouldn't be
meeting?
there. Just,
Yep. Right, and then the considerations of requests from interested parties. Anything else?
No.
So straight into the meaty bit. So to receive the examiner's final report following the neighbourhood plan public hearing and consider Oundle Town Council's response. Peter, can I give you the first bit to kick off on this one?
Well, that's very kind of you. Over Christmas, I emailed everybody to see if they could take a couple of years off from the box that we had in the hard copies. Ian very kindly took 2 years. You took 2 years.
Yep.
I was left with 3 years. I've read 1 year, but I've actually concentrated on the sticks that Roger gave me, and I sent various emails out about things that are on that stick from Roger. Emma's stick only dealt with 17 and 18, so I didn't really think there was much point in going through everything on that part again, because it's basically the same stuff as we had in your files anyway. I then did go back, and I think I'm a glutton for punishment. I read through the old neighbourhood plan again.
Yep.
And I also read through the ENC reply to the old neighbourhood plan, which obviously, in light of what I read again, I could understand why we didn't carry the neighbourhood plan to examination at that time. There were faults in it, quite clear, but only when ENC decided that the faults were there and we shouldn't proceed. In other words, we had a neighbourhood plan that said it was park development in certain places. However, our neighbourhood plan came before ENC decided to change the rules. And I've been looking back at that and reading the two together. I actually feel that we should have actually presented that neighbourhood plan to examination, because I know it would have failed, but we would have had a clear route for the new neighbourhood plan. It's you. Shall I stop what is?
Yes. All right.
So, having read that, I thought in hindsight, we should have gone forward with that neighbourhood plan to examination, knowing full well that it would have failed, but we would have had a clear line of where the examiner wanted us to go, and we'd have had that by maybe September of that year, which would then given us 12 months to get it right and possibly make the new neighbourhood plan successful. That didn't happen, so we're now stuck obviously with the situation that the neighbourhood plan that we produced with our experts and with all the work we carried out, failing again. So we have a situation where we have to my mind, we have three ways of going. We stop the neighbourhood plan and don't do any more work on it, and it's failed, and that's the end of it. We go back to Reg 14. I have a serious problem with that for two reasons. Firstly, I think with the complications that are in a neighbourhood plan, through the SAs and the SEAs and all the planning things, and please don't get this wrong, I don't think we have enough experts on the council to be able to do it. And we can't afford any extra consultations and planners. It would be far too expensive if we had a bill of 32,000. The other point is we don't know if it would actually be completed before the local plan is completed. So I've come to the conclusion, and this is only my opinion, but by the way, it is not the Working Party or anybody else. I've come to the conclusion that we should do this in a slightly different way. We should, and I know Ian's been working very hard on this already, we should go and fight the two main sites that we don't want in the neighbourhood plan, Cottersock Road and St Christopher's Drive. And I believe with what Ian's got already, I think the Cottersock Road one is a 50-50. If we can tip the scales a little bit more, I think we'd actually win that fight. I don't know about St Christopher's Drive because I haven't had enough information about it. If we do that, I would then, and I know this is going to be a bit of a talking point, I believe we should drop all our housing allocation sites on the neighbourhood plan and get it through referendum without the sites in the plan. The reason I say that is if we do get the Cotterstock Road site taken out, planning won't be accepted, etc. And if we do the St Christopher's Drive site the same way, it could be that the local plan will have to accept the sites as per our neighbourhood plan stands at the moment. Whether they like it or not, they will be the only alternatives available. I know, as I said, this might be a little bit off-piste, but I'm seriously thinking that might be a way to go. That's my idea at the moment. Sorry, but I've you know, with all the reading I've done, with all the going back over the files, I can't see any way forward without getting experts in, and we can't afford it.
Right. Just to go a little bit before what you said then.
Yeah.
I want to take the summary from the examiner report. And in his opening summary, he said there were two issues in that report. The first one was his view of our approach to consultation, and the second one was the evidence behind our site selection. And I think these are both technicalities, and they're not a criticism of the sites themselves. So in that, he said on the approach to consultation, he hasn't accepted the town meeting, he hasn't accepted all of the input that went in at the Regulation 16, including the Anvil Town Council input that went in at that stage. And in terms of the site selection process, I know that we were extremely honest in the essay that we presented and our sort of use of the essay. And as we did with our consultation, we went in with a stronger document based on the ENC one. So his view, though, is that there's just two elements of it. However, you go back then into what Peter puts forward, is there's a whole load of other issues that we'd have to manage if we went back around this process again. And my take on the reading of it is that there's an absolute minefield in there of rules and regulations and technicalities that they can keep on throwing at us, to pull the rug from underneath our feet on this one. So I'd like the conversation now to continue around the room, and get everybody's input.
Can I just say again, one of the reasons I've come to this conclusion is that ENC are determined not to get the neighbourhood plan going forward. There is no doubt that the conniving way that they have dealt with the neighbourhood plan over the last 2 years has been a direct, how can I put this nicely? A direct way of stopping the neighbourhood plan, because they want the local plan and they will not do anything to stop that neighbourhood plan. And I just don't think that we have the capability of taking that further forward as it stands at the moment.
Right. Somebody else to speak?
I just agree with Councillor Gill. I think timing is the real issue, because we know that at some point quite soon, Codstock Road and Christopher Road might well be decided upon, at which point, if the examiner's right and 242 houses is the right number, that's a game over. And if we look at the local plan site assessments, as I've done recently, they themselves recommend other sites above some of those. So if they lose their first two sites, say, or first and third site, then they have to look at other sites. And if we spend 6 months, 12 months going through the UTI that's in the examiner's report and rewriting everything, and there's vast amounts to rewrite, that will be decided already, potentially in the next 2 months, so again it will be irrelevant. So,
David?
It is an astonishing situation we find ourselves in. When neighbourhood plans were launched with much fanfare, it was supposed to be perfectly possible for a group of, with all due respect to all of us sat around this table, ordinary people, ordinary councillors, to bring a neighbourhood plan to fruition through referendum. And to be fair, quite a number of neighbourhood plans, including some locally, have managed to do exactly that. Many of them without any difficulty whatsoever. So how did they manage it and we didn't? I can't help but feeling that there is something in what Councillor Peel says, because I think our difficulty has turned out to be that we had a local authority that intimated at the outset how it was going to work with us and support us, and by the end of the process it was perfectly apparent that, if you like, they were in one camp and we were in a completely different one. And that has proved to be the difficulty. Now that's where we're at. The question about where we go is the significant one. It seems to me that it may be almost premature to take a view at this stage, in the sense that if the two planning applications that are currently moving forward were in fact to be granted, then it's quite right, any plan, and by that of course one has to take into account the ENC local plan, any plan would be done against a background that in the plan period to 2021 we were actually provided for all the houses required to 2031, theoretically. And I say theoretically because my fear against that background would be that it is just impossible to envisage a total moratorium in development for 10 years between 2021 and 2031. I just don't think that would end up happening. But we would be at a point where a large quantity of the quote-unquote required housing would have already been provided within the RNOTP plan period, thereby not only rendering our current neighbourhood plan redundant, but actually, in the process, also rendering ENC's local plan redundant, because it would be saying that there ought to be development on sites for which it had by that stage already got planning permission. So, if those go through, there may be a case for looking at where that then leaves the existing housing provision in our own plan. Clearly, we would not need the same kind of numbers. We have a number of large sites, particularly Benfield Road, for example, and we wouldn't need those, but we might be able to incorporate into the plan some smaller sites which are, let's put it this way, likely to be less controversial, not least because there's nobody at that stage then hugely pushing in any other direction. Because those who are advocating the large sites will probably find they can't go forward. So it's only likely to be the smaller sites that might. Now that might include the development of Stoke Doyle Road, and it might look at things like Miller's Field and off, say, Wakeley Drive, those sort of numbers. You could argue that Wakeley Drive is no more than Windfall. The other two sites, one is there or thereabouts for Windfall, the other one might actually make up the numbers. I would actually still not accept what the examiner says about our site selection process. It was extremely robust. It was handled initially with the advice of experienced planning consultants, using exactly the same model as that had been used successfully in other neighbourhood plans, and which was developed at one time around the table in my dining room with Mike Burton from ENC sitting there and being part of and party to what was going on. The inspector's made his decision, and because of the difficulties in challenging it, we're probably stuck with that. But would a different inspector in a wholly different ballgame ultimately take a different view, particularly if the sites that were being suggested were comparatively smaller sites? So my take on it at the moment is this: I entirely agree that we should be trying to resist the two sites. If we succeed in that, so much the better, and then we will have to get our thinking caps on, as will frankly ANC. If they both go through, that's a completely different ballgame, and I think that we could be in the market for taking forward a neighbourhood plan with a very different and much smaller housing provision, but with the benefit of trying to get through everything else that is part of it. If it's one but not the other, that raises some interesting issues all round as well. But the reality is that it's too soon for the council to make a final decision on where we go. And I don't rule out the idea of going back to Regulation 14 and doing it again, because in theory, it should be possible for us to do all of the work, certainly the site selection work and so on, without professional help. It's the whole point. It's supposed to be possible. It is possible. Others have done it. There's no reason in theory why we can't do it. All we need to make absolutely sure is that this time every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and every lesson is learnt from the process that we've gone through. And if, in order to do that, we have to say to the examiner in response to his document that actually at this point the intention of OTC would be to go back to Regulation 14, it doesn't commit us to doing anything. It certainly doesn't commit us to doing any money, but it keeps that option live, it seems to me, in that way. It tells the town that we haven't just rolled over, that it is still our intention to try and drive the process ourselves for so far as we can. If the ground is cut from under our feet by planning decisions made by a different planning authority that we can't control, well, so be it. But I would argue that at this stage, this council's primary function is to oppose the two developments, put this situation on hold, reassess where we are when those two planning applications have been determined, and in the meantime, take the view that we may well be going back to Regulation 14 and trying to drive through whatever we can salvage from our current plan. And I'm sorry that took so long.
Thank you, David. Yeah.
I would point out that the local plan still includes the Stoke Doyle estate. So, therefore, the house...
Therefore, ENC and ourselves are added as one.
Yeah, on that one. And of course, the housing means that that's over 300 when we actually only need 208, because if you go back...
It's a minimum.
Yeah, but that's the minimum we should have. And I agree entirely. What I'm saying to you is that we shouldn't actually do this without really realising that it's going to take a lot more than the 6 months, and also we will need some guidance in the form of experts, especially on the essays. I'm really pretty certain of that. We might be able to do some of it, but not all of it, and I'm really worried about the cost involved in that. In regard to the neighbourhood plans around us that have been accepted, like for instance Glatthorne, Warmington and people like that, there are no housing allocations in that, and they have gone through because of that, rather than having housing allocations in there. They didn't actually...
Because there is actually a housing allocation in the Blackpool plan. Admittedly, the numbers are minuscule.
Exactly.
In terms of overall numbers. In terms of percentage, actually, if you add 12 houses to Blackpool, you add around 10% of the housing stock. So it isn't the case that there is no housing provision in there. There was.
But those,
of course, the reality is that the actual core strategy doesn't require, if you like, specific numbers in specific small towns and particularly the villages such as Blackthorne, Warmington or what have you. No target is set individually for those. Targets are actually set for the rural parts overall. And so it's easier for somewhere like Blackthorne or Warmington or whoever to make small provision, or in some cases potentially turn around and say we're not going to make any particular provision. That was never an option that was open to us. We had to hit a minimum number of 200 plus, and it's our choice as to whether in fact we go over that number. Particularly bearing in mind this scenario that actually what we are looking at, and shouldn't take our eye off the ball, is not the position in the next 2 years, but actually the position up to 2031.
Okay.
Sorry, go on.
Just take it around the table and see a bit more input. Terry?
Sorry, we're not Roy.
Roy.
Oh, sorry, apologies, Roy. I was going to go the other way around, but yeah.
I like a lot of what Councillor Chappell has said there. I think there's a lot of good reasoning behind that. I think the other thing is, even with that, I think we have got to try and move closer to East Northants, or what will possibly by that time be the new unitary, or the initial setup of it. I think we're probably going to have to try. I mean, you said at the last neighbourhood plan meeting that we had, they weren't prepared to talk to us, they're not prepared to negotiate, they don't want to know us. I think we've perhaps got to try again with new personnel. I was talking to them very successfully at one stage, and I'm prepared to have another go to see if they'll talk to us and sit round a table with us. Because I think without that, I can't see us moving forward. I think we've got somehow to work alongside them. We might not be able to agree on everything, but if instead of where we are at the moment we can get closer together, we might actually get something that is a combined neighbourhood plan and district plan that is acceptable. It's got to be acceptable to the town. That's the final criteria. It's something the town wants, and I think we've got to try and talk to ENC. I'd be prepared to have a go at that.
Yeah, no, in terms of talking to ENC, you know, we've put out the invite. We're quite happy to talk to the senior management of the ENC. You know, that we've said that, but at the moment we have them with a no-go area. The no-go area is the Cotterstock Road and St Christopher Drive estates. You know, they will not discuss those two estates. So you know, that's why we're where we are at the moment, and we're not giving up with that particular.
But they may, if we can get round a table with them, they may come to talk to us about those, and we may then be able to make some progress on those.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Roy.
I wasn't at the meeting in December, but I think wasn't that proposed by Councillor Vowles? And ENC said no. That's what I heard. I'm not sure if that's the case, but they said it only in council. No, because I think he suggested that. But again, I misrepresented that.
Okay. So I'm going to just carry on around the table. Val, have you anything to add at this moment?
Pretty much agree with what's been said.
Yeah. Okay. Ian, you've been doing a lot of work over the last few weeks.
Yes. I think talking to East Northants is an important and ideal way forward, but it sounds that they're not willing to talk to us, which is problematic.
Well, they're not willing to talk to us about the things that we want to talk about.
True. I suppose I have a question as well, that if we were to drop the housing allocations, what does that look like? What happens then? Do we need to go back to the examiner who re-examines what we've got, or do we start the process again? I'm not sure how that would work.
Presumably you're talking about sites without numbers on.
No, what we're talking about is all the other things in the neighbourhood plan that are not housing.
And leave housing out altogether.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the discussion item.
95% of the value of your neighbourhood plan is gone, isn't it? I mean, you know, green spaces is important, other issues are important, but nowhere near as important as having some control over the rate at which this town will expand.
Roy, I totally agree with you. I'm not saying it's the ideal solution. What I'm saying is that there is things in the neighbourhood plan that we want to protect, like the greenfield sites, like some of the bikeways and walkways and things like that. You know, if we got those into the local plan, and it's a big if, Roy, if we can stop the Cotterstock Road and the St Christopher's Drive sites, then the ENC will have to look at the other sites that are in that top four, which are Bennefield Road and Herne Road. The other two sites, Millersfield and Wakeley Close, are Winfield sites, so we don't have to really worry about those. They'll be going through anyway. David Wilson's site is in both plans, so that won't disappear. It is literally just to try another way forward. We don't have to get rid of. We don't have to say we're not going back to Reg 14, or we might go back to Reg 13. What I'm saying is, at the moment, in this moment in time, if we can't get a period of time where the Reg 14 situation will happen quickly, then I believe the neighbourhood plan should drop the housing allocations as it is, concentrate on the fight for St Christopher's Drive and Cotterstock Road. If we win that, we can then go back to the ENC with a much stronger hand and say, look, these two sites have gone, the next two sites are available, you know they are, why not put them in? That, to me, is going back with some strength in our hands.
Just carry on round for a moment. Neville, anything to add at this moment? And Sue?
No, not really, but I think it would be good to sit around the table at Council Sparks.
Yeah. Clive?
Well, the only thing I've got to say is we've got to once again involve the town. I think this is important that we keep everyone informed, that we do have a meeting, that we as Councillor Chappell said, we're not seem to be rolled over on this one. It's really important. My personal view, and it is very much personal view, is I think the way things are panning out, the Codstock Road site and the St Christopher Road site are a done deal. And that's the way I'm reading what's been going on with the planners, with the ENC. I think trying to get rid of those now, you know, even if we fight, I don't know on what grounds we can fight that anymore, planning, I think they're going to bulldoze it through regardless. But I think the important message is that we go back to the town, we tell them exactly where we're at, exactly what's been going on, and roll and then take it from there. And actually, my gut feeling is with Councillor Chappell.
Jerry?
Just
Oh, sorry.
can I just
Yeah.
quickly put in, I felt very much the same way going down to the Planning Management Committee a couple of months ago. And I was delighted to see a group of vaguely normal humans talking normally about it. And yeah, I felt much more optimistic coming back. And I think there's two or three quite strong arguments we can use to the councillors, which hopefully, as and when we get dates and when we know it, they're going forward.
But then that, I
But
want to be
it's
proven
more
wrong.
optimistic than...
Yeah, I want to be
I
proven
felt
wrong
like
about that, like that feeling, but it's just the messages I'm getting from all the paperwork we're doing and what we've been hearing is counter that. But I would love, dearly love our plan to go through as is.
Yeah.
With everything.
Sorry, Jerry.
Well, where I am is that I think that the experience of recent years, and indeed even going back to the previous neighbourhood plan, is that there are too many vested interests and too many people who've got too much money in the game to mean that we have been able to influence this process. I have no confidence whatsoever that if we continued to resubmit yet again another version of the neighbourhood plan just to section 14 consultation and go on to the press again, if it still includes housing allocations that the town wants and that we all want, that there's any reason to believe that we won't be found wanting in some other way by the people who hold all the power. So my view is that unfortunately there isn't a democratic process here and there's nothing that we can do to influence what, well, there's nothing we can do through the neighbourhood plan process to influence what happens to those applications. So my view is that I don't see any merit in spending any more of the council's time or money taking the neighbourhood plan back to a new section 14 consultation. Even if we were to take out the housing, if we were just to take it back with the non-housing elements, I assume we'd still have to go back to section 14 and go through that whole process, consultation process again. Which, you know, you have to question what is the value of that, if that is the case. It's very sad, but I just can't see that the reality is any different to that. That doesn't mean I don't think we should do absolutely everything we possibly can to lobby ENC councillors and to make good, sound justifications into the planning process as to why we believe the site selection or the site selection process in the local plan and the specific applications for the two sites that we're concerned about are not, you know, suitable and not appropriate for the town's development. We should do everything we possibly can to influence those decisions, but yeah, at the end of the day, I'm encouraged by Councillor Clark's optimism that there are some councillors in that group that might actually support us. And I really hope that's the case, but yeah, I don't feel very optimistic.
Okay, Terry.
Nothing more to say. I agree with what everybody said, and I think Councillor Chappell's plan to me is the most sensible one.
Okay, so look, we've got about 20 minutes just to progress now the things we can do. In terms of priorities for me, the opposition to the two planning applications, the outline planning applications, is critical time-wise. Yeah, because that's going to steam through. We believe it's next month now rather than this month, don't we? You heard any different?
No evidence of any independent surveys being done at the moment.
Yeah.
But no one from ENC is coming back with any
So those two sites, once they get outline planning permission, would be the end of all the discussions about alternatives and so on. The only alternative we went then left with is a larger Oundle with all of the sites developed. You know, and I don't rule that one out, but you know, I just believe that if we'd been told at the beginning of this process about that, we could have done a much better job at infrastructure, roads, you know, access off the 605 and other sites. We could have designed a town for this size of development, and I'm not beyond even at this point, you know, that we could consider sitting down with the NC and saying, look, if this is really the way it is, then let's design a town around this volume, do the road accesses and so on around that volume of housing. And if we're going to have a conversation with the NC, I want it to be on that type of level. However, before we go to that one, you've seen that we've got our objection into them on their processes and the way they've been working. You know, and the site selection process has been wrong. There's no doubt about that. Wait to see what the developers themselves say about the way they were treated. But you know, we know that one site was deselected because they claimed that they didn't know it existed, and yet they did. And the other site was deselected because there was a green field between that and another house. You know, essentially saying that we can't have green spaces in Oundle. You know, so you can't deselect sites on that basis. So we're going to carry on with our argument against the local plan and to get the local plan process corrected. You know, so that goes at the first level against our complaint on them itself. And then on the second level, once we've got into the local plan, we will be raising our objection when they go through to examination in the same way. But unfortunately, if those two planning applications go through, you know, it doesn't matter what we say or what we complain about, it won't make any difference. So we've got to support the various teams that are fighting those two applications. And you know, the best we can do is just stand behind you guys, you know, that are running those battles. I have a little bit more for you, that, you know, in the reading that I've done. And you know, Peter very kindly gave me all the papers up to 2013. You know, the first 2 years are, I mean, again, what's knocked me back about this is the quality of work that has been done in those early documents. You know, is astounding. You know, and you know, it's just all of that just got totally dismissed. Yeah.
That was the nice thing reading the examiner's comments, was the praise for that level of work and praise for how well, bizarrely considered the consultation thing, the neighbourhood plan represented the views of people around it.
Yes. Yeah.
There we go.
So we've talked at the next agenda item here, if we just merge the two together a little bit about the town meeting and what we might want to do at a town meeting. Now, personally, I don't think we can go to a town meeting and ask the town what does it want. You know, you'd really need to go to that scale of meeting with, you know, this is what we've concluded. Do you agree with us? Yeah. You know, and it's not an option A, B, or C. It's like, this is what we want to do. Do you agree with us? Yeah. But do we, first off, believe that there's still benefit in having that meeting ahead of the annual town meeting? David?
Yes. Okay. You want me to expand on that slightly? The reason is we owe it to the town. We have to explain what has happened and what we envisage happens next.
Okay.
Even if it is, we can't do anything more, which I'm not saying it is, but you know, we have to go out there and we have to explain to them what it is. And we agree with you, we need a plan. There is what I've suggested and what Peter suggested. We need to have a clear message for them. This is where we're at. This is why we've taken this current position. I also think that one of the things we could usefully do is invite our newly elected Member of Parliament to attend this town meeting, which I hoped he would.
Well, you did offer.
I would like, certainly, even if he couldn't do that, him to meet with us and so that we can try and talk him into supporting us.
He's offered that.
I look
He's
at
already
the
done that. He's
Right.
already gone, well, sort of indirectly, but he has contacted, and on that letter he said that he's happy to meet to discuss further.
We have a very, very nice letter from Tom,
Yeah.
handwritten. He really wanted to come and see us.
Right.
So
Well, we should take him
but-
up on that, and we should
Yeah.
invite him to the town meeting, whatever the
And
date is.
that does say if we're going to have the town meeting, we need to have it on a Friday, which is the day he's allowed home. Yes. So,
Is it worth having a meeting before these planning applications are determined, or waiting until after that?
there's no, I don't think there's any point in waiting until after it, because it's too late after it. I think that just in terms of the volume of town feeling, is to have it before.
Yeah.
But then if they do the applications in January, there's no way we can get our meeting in
No,
before.
it's February the 17th.
That's what I believe it is, but of course no agendas have gone out for the January meeting yet, so we won't know until that. But yeah,
12, sorry. Yeah. I mean, Phil Stearns already said it's not on the January meeting.
yeah, okay.
And I know that Jake's would be away if it was.
Well, Jake's not on this. It's the planning committee now.
Yeah, I
not the
appreciate that,
management
but
committee.
equally,
Jake's away.
he could talk
Yeah.
to people. But
Yeah,
but it's slightly more difficult for him to do it when he's in the Caribbean currently.
Yeah. So we have one good argument there in terms of yes, we carry on with the town meeting. Jerry.
I was going to say that I agree, and I think the problem is it's too far away. The town meeting is not, it's,
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
should call a special then. Yeah.
we need to do something.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
if we can do it before the planning consideration is made at ENC, great. That's a fairly small window, and there's going to be logistical problems. But I mean, the sooner the better, I would say.
Well, it looks like, if we're to do anything, it looks like the first week of February would probably be the quickest we could do anything, isn't it? And that does get us in before that meeting.
First week in February would be good.
It would. All right.
And I'm away after that.
So without any great discussion on this, is the general feeling that we should go for a town meeting? Yeah.
Definitely.
So we're not- Okay, we've got a proposal and a seconder. All those in favour?
On a Friday.
So
And-
who was the seconder?
Yeah, Terry. Yeah. So just in terms of the day of the week, the reason I said Friday was that Tom Purse Club normally comes back to constituency at the end of the week. But even there, you don't know whether you'd be free or not on that one. And Friday is a very bad day to have meetings, generally speaking. So I think that we might. There's we'll put the invite out to Tom, but there's too many things might interfere with that. Okay, so we've got a sort of window of that first week. Normally ends up it's going to be Wednesday or Thursday, doesn't it? Because of the council meeting on Tuesday.
Yeah, because Tuesday, there would be a planning meeting on that Tuesday.
Yeah.
And would you potentially might still have a neighbourhood plan if we've got to
Yeah.
discuss anything?
So I'd say let's go for the Wednesday of
The
that
Wednesday.
week. Yeah, for that first week of February, and see how we can do with just in terms of cost and facilities.
In the QVH?
Well, I was just going to say, are we brave enough to go back to the QVH?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Not because it's cheap.
Well, actually, that's one of the things that we should bear in mind for the town meeting, how much the room costs.
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
Where you get,
Just
yeah.
on a point of that, it would be quite important to us, as we had our first meeting with
Yes.
the working party today,
Yeah.
about the QDH, to actually go there and
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
using it very
Yeah.
effectively. And of course, we'd have to look at the PA system.
I mean,
It's time.
you say cost, but the only thing is, if we're going to have 200-300 people there, and they're all going to hear what's going to be said and be able to see what's presented, then
we need a proper projector.
A little projector with a screen that's
we do need.
And no PA. It's not going to cut
It won't cut it.
So
We've got to have the same facilities we've got in the...
if you end up hiring up all of that lot, you might actually be cheaper to go somewhere else, assuming you can get data.
I'm just feeling it though. It's a little message that we maybe get across by having it back there, even if it does cost us equal. Yeah. Okay, so that bit then's fine. We've got the meeting. We need to work out the agenda for the meeting. Right. Let's go back to the big discussion about what are we doing.
Which Wednesday is it then?
The first week of
5th of February.
Thank you.
So let's go back on the action plan of what we're doing then. And you know, I've got my the response to their the complaint that we had against them.
Yeah.
I've sent a draft out there. Rather than discuss it all, can I leave it with you to give me some feedback? Thanks.
We'll finish.
Yeah.
Properly digested.
Yeah. So in terms of timing, we need to get that in. You know, I think the end of next week would be the really latest. I'd like to get it into the middle of next week. So that's our formal objection. In terms of defending the two sites,
Attacking the two sites. Not defending the two sites.
No, okay, yes. So in positive mood, I came back to this.
So you should say attacking.
Yeah. No, I'm defending two sites that we want. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of attacking the two sites, St Peter's Road has got a fairly good working group going on it. The St Christopher's Drive one has just fallen apart, you know, and it's due to ill health and emigration. So yeah, William is off to Thailand, so he can't do any more. So I don't know how to handle that one, to be quite honest, at the moment.
Could he send the files over?
I've already got them.
You've got them. That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
So I'm happy to help coordinate that, and I've got some ideas.
Okay,
Let's
thank you.
together. So
Yeah. So I would rather, if I could, keep a little bit of neutrality on that rather than get involved myself. And I can't help being involved, but it's not because I live there. It's only because of the site. Okay, so we carry on that part of the battle. We carry on the complaints that we've raised. David, what else have we missed?
Well, I suppose that bear in mind that the cause of this is that document. And we need to tell the town what we're going to do in the light of that document. Because it begs the question, do we stop completely? Do we go back to Regulation 14? If so, when? With what in mind? That probably is going to involve explaining the position around the two applications and stressing the significance of those applications on the basis that it drives a coach and horses through the original sites picked in there. We could even say that, you know, in terms of whether we took the plan forward with a housing allocation in it, or whether we took it forward without one in order to protect the other parts, we're still minded to do one or the other, and quite which way we go will probably very much depend upon what happens for those planning applications. I don't think we can say anything other than that, because that's the position we're in, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
I agree with what you just said. I mean, my suggestion, my proposal would be that we go to the town, we go back to town, we explain what's happened with the determination in terms of the examination of the neighbourhood plan. We explain that there is no way that we can do anything to move our plan forward before we're going to get determinations on the two planning applications that have been already in, and we're doing everything we can to justify why those planning applications should not be approved. Yeah. And that once we know the outcome of those decisions, we can take a view as to what we think the next thing to do with the neighbourhood plan is. But probably, if it does go back to consultation, it's going to be without housing allocations. It may, you know, it'll be to protect the other things that we've got in there that we want to preserve.
Yeah. So Peter, just
do we also tell them that we've actually made a complaint against?
Oh yes, there's no doubt
the district council, and does that have any effect on our decision?
Well, it clarifies our decision that we're objecting to that site allocation and the local plan. And Arundel Town, the people, when they were consulted on the local plan, did just that. Yeah. You know, that, you know, this is the annoying thing about the process that we're going through. That Arundel Town people have consistently said which sites that they wanted in every document, and yet it's the opposite that's been had. And the fundamental part of the examiner's report is about consultation. You know, so they consult the people, they ignore the consultation that has taken place, and then throw out our plan because we didn't go through a technicality on consultation.
because the examiners really shouldn't be looking at them, deciding which is right in terms of which sites. He's only supposed to be looking at process, isn't
Well,
he?
when you look at his report, he spent more time examining the local
Absolutely.
plan, which he hadn't
That's what-
technically read,
Yeah.
than he did the
And
neighbourhood
that
plan.
worries me.
Peter.
The one thing as well, I think, if we can at that meeting, is explain to everybody that there's on the 12th of February there is a meeting of the planning committee in ENC, and well, I think we should give out all the names of the ENC councillors on that committee, asking the people of Oundle to write to those people on the planning committee individually, so that they get the letters from the residents of Oundle complaining about the two sites, Costerstock Road and St Christopher's Drive, and we can give them a sheet with all the problems that both those sites would actually give.
So in terms of details of the town meeting then, let's do it as part of the neighbourhood plan group.
Yeah.
But just in...
Can I draw your attention?
Well, technically not.
The schedules on the East Northants website. There's a planning policy meeting on the 20th of this month, and the planning management is on the 30th of this month. I'm not sure if you're aware of those two dates.
No, we're not.
When do they change those?
I've been watching on a daily basis.
Ah.
It's only recent.
Yeah, it's been July of last year, and it's been amended as from January.
Yeah. Well, thank
Okay,
you
well,
for
I spoke to Phil Stern this morning, and he didn't know that.
But you can look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't disbelieve it. What I'm saying is,
I hope I'm very wrong. But,
No, whatever they are, we will be there anyway.
No,
But
you're right. You're right. Just looking at it, you're right.
so the planning committee, which is where the applications for planning go to, not the planning and management.
The
committee,
planning management, which is where the planning applications go to, is the 30th of January. Planning policy is on the 20th.
So they've actually brought it forward then.
Well, or just change the line.
Yeah, changed.
Well, they cancelled the planning management meeting on the 15th of January, by the looks of this. They've cancelled that, so whether I assume that they've
so we need
put
to
it back
argue.
a couple of weeks.
I'll speak to
So
Phil
let's
tomorrow.
look at agendas. But just in terms of technicality moving forward then, we'll use the neighbourhood plan meeting then now to coordinate this meeting, the town meeting. And just in that, I'll open it up to any of the councillors who want to join that group.
What does the working, but not the meeting on the 4th?
No,
No.
this is the
This is-
working party
yeah.
getting ready for the town meeting on the 5th, the 6th. Yeah. Right, the other thing, David, just because you have the document in your hand, a question for us is whether or not we write a letter of objection to that report, or I don't know what the word is that we write to it.
I don't know what official procedures actually exist. I don't know if there's any mechanism, as it were, for asking for it to be reviewed or appealed beyond what we've already done. I think, therefore, it's probably pointless, because I'm not sure that it can change or achieve anything to actually write. Equally, I doubt that it will do any harm, but in terms of where our efforts should be directed, I'm not entirely sure that there's likely to be a lot achieved by writing to him and pointing out anything that we want to point out, because we've already tried to some extent.
I'm not sure whether, and I don't know if to speak to Mike Burton about this, whether now we've received that final report, whether we have to then, if we've got any questions, go back to the ENC, because that's how.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
wouldn't
how
do
the
it
process
to
works.
the examiner, it would be to
Yes, it would be to
saying-
ENC,
because
yeah.
they commissioned the examiner. So, but I would at least have a short letter saying that we do not agree with many aspects of this report, and I might go into a few details in it, but I would just like to log something that we're not accepting the report.
And possibly then relate that to the fact that we put in a complaint.
Yes, yeah, I mean, they are slightly different things,
Even though
but
they know, it's quite
Yeah.
a good job to remind
Right,
people.
yes, because I'm conscious of the fact that
Yeah.
very soon we're going to switch into another meeting. But of course, we'll all see that on the bottom of that are the words NPS.
So,
Those of us with medium-term memories may recall that we paid to
Hell
go
of a
to
lot.
NPS
Yeah.
at an earlier stage in this process for some guidance about where we were going with all of this.
It was 2017.
Yet again, I feel that
2000,
somewhere along the
yeah.
line, we've gone to all of these, you know, we've jumped through every single hoop, we've paid people for this, we've paid people for that, and somehow it never seems to be giving us the answers that seemingly we need. And
As I've said many times.
I think we may need to be ready to answer questions from the public, because if I pick it up, so can everybody else, because there will be people out there who will be aware of the fact that we went to NPS and might say, how come you go to them and they don't flag up 1,000,001 issues, and then this happens. Now, I know that they're not totally looking at things in quite the same way at that earlier
Yeah.
stage, but we may need to explain that to people.
yes, right.
I pointed out many times over that the previous NPS report was really a grammatical correction. They did very little other than try and stiffen up the text. Where we'd said we may, they changed the word to will, shall, throughout, and that was the main change.
Yeah.
In lots and lots of places throughout the report, but there was nothing in there in that NPS report to suggest that the plan was in any way flawed or you know, would fail. We were led to believe, make these minor grammatical changes and your plan should be on track.
No, it was the wonderful thing about the you know, 2012 documents that I read, particularly some of the brochures about how you set up a neighbourhood plan, of how excited the whole world was at that stage.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, the local people are going to have a say, you know, and if only they could see this now. We had Danny Moody, you know, did communicate with us, and you know, in a national group of his organisation, you know, they were saying that essentially neighbourhood plans are only lasting for about 2 years when they're put into existence. So the fact that in 2012 they asked us to come up with a plan to go from 21 to 31, you know, was absolutely naive.
Yeah.
You know, in essence, you know, that it was not on. So, okay, so look, we've got the neighbourhood plan working group. Then is going to coordinate a meeting for the town on the 6th of February. It'll be in Victoria Hall, and it will have a massive big screen in it, you know, and spare projector. 5th of February, I'll be there on the 6th.
Yeah.
I'm always a
I can
little
see
bit
who's
late.
going to end up having to chair it. If that happens.
You're going on the stage.
Yeah, I'll have to. Nobody's seen me otherwise.
Exactly.
It's all right. Before you said it,
Quick question. If we find that the planning permissions come up on the 30th of
30th,
January,
yeah.
do we need to have a plan B of bringing it earlier, or do we just say, this is what happened last week?
yeah, I don't think there's, you know, to be quite honest, I don't think what we're going to achieve in terms of influencing ENC is going to come out of this meeting anyway. However, you know, there's a chance of getting the town wound up. If the meeting is coming forward, then I think we should use all our publication mechanisms to get people along there. You know, so we don't know what the agendas are going to be. I'm particularly interested in the planning policy group's agenda, you know, because our complaint is very much against the planning policy group and the way that it has put together the local plan. You know, and the local plan is not robust. You know, it will not go through examination because of exactly the same things that the ENC raised with us back in March last year. You know, because you know, essentially it's a plan that has been constructed around a conclusion. You know, so it is not robust and it can't stand. But you know, that is a moral victory. It doesn't help because they would have already by then given planning permission to the sites. Okay, right. Unless there's yeah, Jerry, go on.
Quick any other business, if that's okay. If we're at that point, I'm just saying this in case people who may have known him weren't aware that Mark Swansea died just before Christmas.
Yes.
So, well, from the reaction in the room, obviously, a lot of people do know who he is. Even if you don't think you know, I'm sure you'll recognise his face. I believe in the past he's coached juniors at Rugby Club, and you will have seen him perform it out with his band at Festival Fringe and Acoustic Summer Club is the band that they performed at the party at the Wharf last year. So very sad, far too young. His funeral's in Friday at midday at St Peter's.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Anything else from anybody at the moment? I thank you for a very constructive hour's discussion there, and you know, sort of you see the fight continues. Thank you.